was gonna leave my coffee down and I thought, no, I'm bringing it with me. Because our beloved Victoria went down and got me coffee this morning. So that's what she brought me. It's like a ritual, right? Does anybody have a ritual with their coffee or their water or their tea in the morning, their favorite drink? Mine is just smelling it. You know, I drink decaf. And I have a friend of mine that would say, why bother? So when she would say, I'm going to Starbucks, because there was a Starbucks across the street from her office, she was my chiropractor. She'd say, what would you like? And I'd say, why bother? She'd do exactly what I meant. Because it's that ritual. It's the ritual of slowing down and breathing it in and just grounding yourself, right? Breathe in with me, just breathe in. And ground yourself as you exhale. And as I take another sip of my why bother coffee. Tim, you just mentioned to me that all of your songs today are originals.
Right.
That's awesome. I love that. I love how much talent we have here. And Laura Lee was going to be with us today. She has had an injury to her hand. So we called Tim and he said, of course I'll be there. So we are so grateful for you. So grateful for you. And Jim, for your prayer this morning. Thank you. Thank you. And Doug, thanks for stepping up. I love having men on the pulpit because we tend to gather in women, right? We gather a lot of women, and this community has a good amount of men that are in service. We always have Davy here. We have John, we have Andy, we have Jim, we have Rifat, right? We've got, did I pronounce it right? Okay, good. We've got a great group of men in this community, and I want to honor all of you because, you know, I have been to many a center where it's a bunch of women. And you kind of sort of miss that masculine energy, right? We miss that masculine energy. So today I'm surrounded by it. Woo-hoo. You know, what's funny is at my house, it's me and Finn, who's male. And when I go to San Jose, it's me and Mark and Willie and Jakob, my two parrots, and Bodhi and Loki, my two cats. They're all male. I'm surrounded by the male energy at both homes. It's really funny. So to come here and have a nice balance is really cool. Today, we're talking about honoring your boundaries. Anybody here ever have an issue with honoring their boundary? Yeah, yeah. It's funny, interesting, as I started talking about boundaries last week, because boundaries are something that's alive for me. Because I'm always trying to figure out where my boundaries are, right? I shared with you before that my boundaries used to look like gray areas. Right? And what would happen is if I had a gray area, people would go, oh, I could go through there. And then it wasn't always healthy for me. Maybe not for them either. But I found myself in situations that I never wanted to be in because I didn't set a boundary. Now, boundaries are the way that we take care of ourselves, right? Right? They're a generative boundary, which means the one that can regenerate itself, that can keep renewing itself, rebirthing itself, that protects and enhances life, and it moves us towards nourishing forms of adaptation. What does that mean? It means that as we set a boundary, it allows us then to continue to grow in other ways. If I have a boundary that says, that's unacceptable to me, and I hold that boundary, let's go over here, that the nothingness is unacceptable to me, and I hold that boundary, what am I doing? I'm allowing all of this to come true. All of this, the possibility, by holding that boundary over there. So can you learn to say a wholehearted yes and a wholehearted no in life? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. See, Ernest Holmes taught us that unity does not mean uniformity. Unity does not mean uniformity. In setting these generative boundaries, it helps us to take care of ourselves and nurture our own unique expression. I'm going to read a quote by Ernest Holmes in Know Yourself. This is on page 88, second paragraph. He says, I do not think that we should make such a claim to divinity that we forget we are human. For our humanity proclaims the creativity of the divine. Human we are, doing the best we can, and ever seeking a fuller realization of our source. He goes on to say, our experience is filled with laughter and tears, singing, dancing, praying, and exulting, and sometimes falling into the depths of despair. We need to have a good-natured flexibility towards all that we encounter, not fighting against life, but cooperating with it. Not fighting against life, but cooperating with it. So what does that look like? What does that look like? It looks like something isn't going right with a friendship. A boundary is being crossed. Maybe I need to separate myself from that person. A boundary looks like, you know, every time I overeat, and I'm saying this from personal experience yesterday, every time I overeat, I'm in pain. It hurts. It hits that vagus nerve somehow in my body, and all I want to do is go to sleep. How do I avoid that? I set a boundary for myself. No, I mean stop. Stop eating before you get to that point. Sometimes it just tastes so good, though, I can't help myself. Right? But stop before you get to that point. Take smaller portions. Spread your meals out a little bit more, right? It took me a bit. Catherine and I were comparing notes on the way home yesterday. Oh man, and I can't barely stay awake. It was really hard. I had to go home, go for a walk, get my blood flowing so things could start digesting, right? These are the things that we have to do. Setting a boundary helps us to manifest the inner life of spirit. That's what learning to set a boundary is. It's manifesting the inner life of spirit, because boundaries help others know how we want to be treated. Boundaries help us to create a mental equivalent that says, I am valuable and I am worthy. Wow. I'm valuable and I'm worthy. Can you all say that? Yeah, you are. You are valuable and you are worthy. And when you set a boundary, you are affirming that for yourself. You are affirming that for yourself. When you're overstretched and you say, brought up the white flag, I'm going to go take a day off and I'm going to go be out in nature and I'm not going to answer anything. I'm not answering the phone. I'm not answering email. I'm not answering the door. I'm not even going to turn on the TV or the internet. That's setting a boundary, because you're taking care of yourself, because you are worthy of that. You know, hey, it's Sunday morning. I'm going to go to yoga and then I'm going to go to church. Right? Right? I'm going to do something for myself. If the pets or the partners or the kids or anybody saying, but I want your attention, you get to say a boundary. No, I get to go do this for me. I get to go do this for me. Holmes writes, to assert our individuality is to rise above the law of averages into that more highly specialized use of the law. I'm going to read that again. To assert our individuality is to rise above the law of averages into that more highly specialized use of the law. That means we're not allowing life to happen to us. We are affirming the life that we are choosing to live. We are affirming the life that we choose to live. Now, we have all had moments in our lives where we're like, oh, life is hard. Life stinks. Nothing's working for me. We've all had those moments. Don't deny them. That's allowing life to work you. When you are working life, you are saying, you know, this might be a little bit rough right now, but I'm going to get through this and it's going to be okay on the other side. Or this is just temporary. Or the other one, I think I shared it this week. I was either in class or this last week, either in class or here on the pulpit. My friend Reverend Abigail Shire says, when something fumbles, she says, oh my goodness, something wonderful is about to happen. Something wonderful is about to happen. The first time she said it, I thought, are you nuts? But she kept saying it. We were on a committee together. We put on a retreat together and, you know, things would fumble and she would say, oh my goodness, something exciting is about to happen. And pretty soon I was right in there with her. Like it would come into my head before she'd say it. Right. And other people in the room would go, oh, something exciting is about to happen. Isn't that a great way to look at life? So let's talk about setting boundaries. Let's first talk about relationships. We all have them. We all have them, whether they're with our partner, our neighbor, our pets, our community, our employers. All of life is about relationships, and relationships are social constructs, right? Prentice Hemphill, in her book, she talks about how everything changes when we are freed from the dictates of history, when we can relate in an undefended way and find a path to one another. Whoa. Whoa. She's talking about inherent beliefs and patterns of relationships that we have by watching how the people around us move. Who is listened to and who is seen? Who is being lifted up? Who is being hunted down? Right? We learn in this way who we are and who we have been in relationship to the world's other inhabitants. Think about it. What's happening in our world today? And how are you choosing to be in relationship with that? You can choose anger. You could be angry. You could choose to be in concert with people in power. You can choose to ignore them. You can choose to say, that's not going to work for me. Let's try something else. It's all okay. It's all a part of the human experience, but it's your choice. Right? When the train is coming at us, we don't lay down on the tracks. We get out of the way. Or we do something to make it stop. That's your human choice. That's where you get to stand in your power. Right? Same thing happens if somebody or something is coming at you with violence or anger. What's your choice? To take it? Right? Or to say, I'm done with this conversation, I'm out of here, bye. Right? It's setting a boundary. It's setting a boundary. And boundaries are, again, about taking care of ourselves. About taking care of ourselves. Hemphill also talks about 3 skills necessary to live a life free from our inherited scripts: by authenticity, by boundaries, and by trust. Authenticity is about being our real selves. I talked about last week about don't hide your light. Be your real self. Be who you are. If you want to dance down the street and smile at people, then do it. One of my favorite things to watch online, and I don't know if it's on Facebook or TikTok, but there is this young man and he plays music and he dances. I mean, he's a great dancer. And he dances around Walmart in the grocery department. And sometimes people look at him like he's nuts, and other times people sing along and dance right with him. But he's got this big smile on his face and he's having a great time. He's spreading joy around the world. I went to see a concert at the music series on Tuesday night. It was listed as R&B, young woman out of Austin, Texas. Oh, she could shred, man. She could shred. She was amazing. But as she was playing her guitar, I mean, just ripping on it, she's looking up with this big, huge smile. I mean, her smile must have been this big. And somebody, I went to go follow her on TikTok, and somebody said, "Why do you always look up when you're playing?" And she said, "Because that's where inspiration comes from." Yes, yes, that's where inspiration comes from. It doesn't come from here. It doesn't come from here. It comes from here. It comes from here. There's something about looking up at a 45-degree angle when you are claiming and accepting something that does something for you, right? It doesn't come from moping around, doing this, life is hard, blah, 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 blah. It comes from being your whole self out loud. And what a joy it was to watch her play and sing because of this huge smile on her face that I can't duplicate because my mouth is not that big, right? But it was huge. Authenticity is about being our real selves. And learning to be authentically ourselves can help us to set those generative boundaries that continue to create more and more so we can stand in our truth. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and you can love me simultaneously, is what Hemphill writes. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and you can love me simultaneously. That's so beautiful. We often think of boundaries as negative, but in reality, they are a necessary part of honoring who we are. Honoring who we are. Boundaries are a way of resetting power dynamics in relationships, of restoring our sense of agency and choice. And maybe most importantly, boundaries are about how we shelter our authenticity, our real selves. And they are essential as we build relationships with one another. Boundaries are how we stay and feel intact. See, balanced relationships don't require our escape. Balance is not a stagnant state. It is a dance, an ever fluctuating way of being. There's an ebb and flow, and then a meeting in the middle that happens. There's a meeting in the middle that happens. So boundaries are fluid and flexible and relational. They're not demands on other people. They're not ultimatums. Boundaries are, this is how I take care of myself. And they take trust. They take trust, and they take trust first with ourselves. Yeah, I had a lot of gray areas. I didn't trust myself. I didn't believe that I was worthy of boundaries. I had been the ping pong ball of life, right? Just going wherever life was bouncing me to. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working. It showed up in my career. It showed up in my housemates. It showed up, in the people that I chose to have in my life and the jobs that I chose to take. I was bouncing from here to there. Like, where is my purpose? Where am I supposed to be? God, tell me. And then the spiritual 2x4 came and whacked me on the side of the head. Anybody ever have that happen? Yeah. The spiritual 2x4 came and whacked me on the side of the head. And I'm here to tell you, it whacked me a few times. It tapped me, it tripped me, it created holes in the ground for me to fall into and find my way out of. And then it hit me, in multiple different ways until it finally hit me physically. And I went, whoa, that wasn't cool. How do I avoid that in the future? Oh, I set boundaries. Oh, okay, I get it. And in my mind, I was visualizing my family was very, very active in San Jose Family Camp. It's a camp that the city of San Jose owns and runs, and it's up by Yosemite. Up just above Buck Meadows, if you know that area, the western entrance. And every year we would go up on what they called work weekends. This was friends of family camp. We would go up on a work weekend and mom would paint and I always got put in the kitchen, probably because I like doing dishes. Shh, don't tell anyone. And it was fun to shoot each other with water on a hot day, right? My brother was on the animal crew. The animal crew was a bunch of teenage boys in Frank Fredericks. Boy, I tell you, that man would get those kids working. They would dig stairs into hills. They were the animal crew. And my dad would do the heavy lifting. And I remember recalling my dad damming the river. The middle fork of the Tuolumne River had to be dammed every year to create the swimming hole. The concrete was there, but these guys had to go and put the boards in and hold the water back to create the swimming hole. And one year, I think it was one of the last years that we all went, I sat and watched them. Because I was a rebellious teenager at that point and I wasn't going to do any work, so I sat and watched. And I marveled at the strength it took for these guys, my dad and two other people, to block that dam. My dad was strong. He didn't look it, but he was strong. And he would take one end of that board and two guys would take the other end of the board. And they would put it down in and then they would push it down to block that water. And that's what I imagined myself doing. It was hard. It was sweaty. It was exhausting work, but I took those boards and I pushed them down and I continued to build my wall of my boundaries that I was not willing to flex on any longer. Yeah, okay, there's one water that's going to come through here and there. That's life. But who am I and what am I willing to accept in my life? That was a big one. Who am I and what am I willing to accept into my life? Where have you forgotten to place the board in your dam? To block what isn't welcome in your life any longer. I gift you the image of my father. Use it, because it's a strong one. That power and that strength that it took for those men to put those boards into place and then to take them out at the end of the season with all of the weight of that river pushing on it to get those boards out. Again, hard work. For them to do that, it took trust. It took trust in themselves, in their bodies, in the people on the other side of that board. So for us, it takes trust to set those boundaries in who we are and the divine presence, whatever it is what we want to call it, saying, yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do this. Anybody here have a place where they can create a boundary? Yeah. Can you commit to creating a boundary in the next week or two? Or at least writing it down and doing some imagery, some visioning and visualization in your mind. How am I going to do that? Hemphill also says, just as who and how we trust is often shaped by our interpersonal experiences, it is also conditioned in us through the way that society assigns value to people. Any society that ranks people based on race or gender or any other arbitrary characteristic teaches that trust should be allocated not by personal merit, but by how closely one conforms to social norms. Anybody here ever been to India? It's very interesting there. Because people are born into a caste system. They're born into it. They can't get out of it. That's the way their society is. So if your driver who is driving you around India is being amazing and fabulous, and you say to your driver who's going to sit out there in the heat and wait for you, why don't you come in with me? I'll pay for you. They have to say no. Because they're not allowed in there. Because they were born in a system that says that they are not worthy. It broke my heart to have this experience. How many times do we see, and we all do it, see somebody and think they're unworthy of X. It might happen for a brief second, but it happens. And that's the moments where we get to recognize in ourselves and say, oh, that's a boundary I need to set. That thinking is no longer welcome. Maybe it's about a driver, maybe it's about somebody's skin color or their job or the fact that that they have a home or they don't have a home or they have money or they don't have money. It doesn't make any difference. We all have those quick judgments. The boundary is setting that for ourselves. I don't want to go there any longer. That's not my business. That's not my business. So this week, this is your call to action. Learn how to negotiate trust in relationships. This requires being aware of the ways in which our beliefs and ideas about ourselves and others are shaped by our personal and cultural histories. Remember, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and you can love me simultaneously. Our boundaries may be fluid. They may change over time and they change based on circumstances, but in the end, boundaries help us to build relationships that we have to be aware of, and the way we have been conditioned to value some people over others. It's said our relationships can be freed from the expectations imposed by history and oppression when they're given more room, prioritized, and centered. So get real. Get curious about how your past has shaped you, how it has affected your edges and your boundaries. Are you willing to lay the scripts down for something else? To learn to love you and me simultaneously, we have to be willing to show our soft underbellies, to be truly who we are, and to know where our edges are permeable and where they are firm. This is the ground of holy relationships. Holy relationships. Let's pray. So taking a deep breath and just being in that space of love. Love and understanding and patience and peace. Let's just know that there is only one source, one power, one presence, one energy that moves in, through, and all around all things, and it is love. It is that love that flows between each and every one of us. It is love in all of its forms. Love shows up as abundance. Love shows up as joy. Love shows up as freedom. Love shows up as a group of people saying, we're not taking that anymore. Love shows up as our boundaries. And because that is the truth, we get to step into that space of love. We get to step into that space of creating boundaries. We get to step into that space of knowing, not only for ourselves, but for other people, that there is a place where we can say, no more, where we can let love in, where we can open up, shine the light, and allow love into the places that are no longer working for us. We allow love into society that may be struggling. We allow love in to places of war and famine. We allow love in all of these places because we know that love is the underlying answer to all that there is. See, when we create the boundaries, when we allow love in, we then can allow the abundance of the universe into our lives. We can allow the happiness, the joy, the beauty of the universe into our lives. And I know and claim and accept for each person in this room, each person hearing my voice, that all of these gifts are yours. They are mine. They are available to all of us. There is no piece of the pie. It is the entire pie. It is available to everyone. It's unending. So as we affirm love, as we affirm boundaries, as we affirm the yes that we are, we're knowing that the divine universe is saying, yes, yes, yes. You want more health, it's yours. You want more abundance, it's yours. You want more joy and laughter in your life, it is yours. All you need to do is ask, say it out loud. I am ready for a shift in my consciousness. I am ready for more in my life, and I welcome it. The gift of the universe is unending, and it is so good. It is perfect in every way, and we get to recognize that, not only for ourselves, but for everyone around us. Because God is good. Love is good, light is good, peace is good, abundance is good. And so I sit in gratitude with this knowingness. I sit in gratitude for these teachings that remind us of the truth of who we are. And so I let this prayer go into the law of mind. I know that Spirit's already been saying, yes, yes, yes. All I need to do is open my mind, open my heart, and claim it as my good. So as we do that together in our hearts and our minds, we just simply anchor this prayer by simply saying together, and so it is.